Hello, good afternoon. This is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharp. I'm here live to take your questions. I'm also here to talk to you about an important topic. So, with everything going on, I know I've seen a lot of people talking about the fact that marriage does not guarantee the green card anymore. Now, that has always been the case, guys. However, what's happening is they're going to get a lot more strict. And that means that when your applications are submitted, if they're not properly submitted, and they have to reject it or deny it, there's a risk of you getting a notice to appear before you can even refile or before you can even correct the error. So that's where the risk gets higher. But it has always been that way, that marriage does not guarantee that you're going to get the green card. The reason being, you do have to go through a process to show that your marriage is bona fide. A lot of people get confused with that. A lot of people think just by getting married, you're going to go ahead and get your green card. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. What happens is you have to show that you're legally married, but at the same time, because any two people can get married, right? I could find a stranger on the street tomorrow, and if that stranger agrees and we say, okay, let's go get married, guess what happened? We can go to the courthouse. They're not going to ask us any questions. They're not going to say, why is it you two strangers are getting married? They give you the marriage license and you can get married, right? So if that's not enough for immigration, immigration wants to know that this is real and that you do intend to build your lives together. Now, some marriages don't work out in the end, but when you are going through this process, you, as a married couple, you have to show that you have the intention to spend your life together. And that is where a lot of people fall short. That intention is not shown sufficiently in the documentation. So in we have a very high success rate, and the reason being is because we ensure that we are very strong on the bona fide evidence, along with the other types of evidence that's often overlooked, like the affidavit of support. And, in the case of a petition, the affidavit of support, a petition and adjustment of status, and the medical. All right. But today, so that I just wanted to make that clear, guys. So what's happening is the immigration, in so many words, is saying, keep in mind, we're going to dig in. We're going to really look at this application. We're going to make sure you have to make sure you have attached all the evidence, because if we deny and you've overstayed or you're deportable in any way, we're going to go ahead and issue that notice to appear. So you don't want to give them that opportunity, that space to be able to do that. So what I would say is just make sure that you understand the process and that you are doing everything right. That's what we help our clients with. We help our clients to get through the process successfully. Now, I'm going to talk though today about the options where marriage is not an option for you, and you're trying to get protection, get your work permit here to live and work legally here. Now is the time to do that, because another thing is when you're picked up and you have no pending process, the fight gets a lot harder. Doesn't mean that you can't overcome removal and detention, but it gets harder. In cases where we've gotten our clients bond or we've gotten them released, it's because we represented them on a pending process and we were able to show that we had a strong case. And because of that, the judge and even the ICE officer who was overseeing this says, okay, we're going to give you a chance to move forward with your process. So keep that in mind, right? Sitting down in the shadows is not going to. Maybe that would have worked a few years ago. You're putting yourself in a situation where you're disempowering yourself. You are not empowering yourself. At a minimum, you can give us a call, talk to us. We can talk you through options and then get started. So let's talk about options without getting married. So if you're here and you've overstayed your visa, maybe you even enter the country without permission. If you don't qualify for marriage, you don't qualify for even adjustment of status through the regular family based process, then the next thing we do is we look at your circumstances to see if there are alternative options that are available. And I'm going to talk about three main options that where marriage is in not in any, well, actually, four main options where marriage is not required, right? So one, let's talk about VAWA. Now, even with me, you often hear me talk about VAWA in the context of marriage, right? However, if you are the son or daughter of a US citizen or permanent resident, or you are the parent of an adult US citizen who's age 21 or older, there is the option to pursue your own green card without the need to get married, but based on any mistreatment that you experience in that parent-child relationship. Now, usually you have, if you are the son or daughter of a US citizen or permanent resident, usually you have to be under 21, but there are certain exceptions to that, right? And those exceptions are if you are under 25 and the reason you never applied was related to the fact that your parent mistreated you. If that's the case, if you're under 25, you still have time. So give us a call. Let's talk about your circumstances. Now, before I move on to the next one, let's talk about VAWA, the benefits, the pros, the cons. Now, with VAWA, if you are in this situation where you were mistreated by a US citizen or permanent resident parent or a US citizen adult child, the first question that comes up, because this is a complex dynamic, right? You have parent child situation. And even though there may have been mistreatment, the love is still there, and the concern is still there, and the need to protect your relative is still there. And so the next thing you ask is my relative going to get into trouble? Are they going to contact them? Are they going to call the police on them? And in the many years I've been practicing and doing VAWA, and in my many cases representing clients, I've never had a situation where immigration calls law enforcement. It's just not their job, and I'm sure they don't want that job, right? The purpose of VAWA is to look at whether you qualify for protection. It is not there for anybody to get into trouble. So keep that in mind. It is focused on you and the information that you provide to determine whether you deserve this protection to gain independence from this relative, or relief if you've already left, but you know you've already left, but you're obviously your family member failed you, you're here stuck, you don't have your status, you're facing harms here and you're more vulnerable, then that's why it's there for you. And it is still moving forward. We've gotten green cards for our clients. We're getting work permits for our clients based on VAWA even now. Now, let's talk about the pros and the cons. Now, the number one con that we're going to knock out is the entire process from filing to green card can take 3 years, 3 to 3.5 years. Now, a lot of people, when you're filing for VAWA, it is an option where you know that you can go through it on your own, and that in itself is worth it for my clients because they can go through a peaceful process. It's long, but they don't have to worry about is their relative going to sabotage their process. They don't have to worry about are they going to get deported because their relative is somehow involved. They don't have to worry about that. And I've seen it repeatedly. My clients often call me in distress. I mean, nobody wants a lawyer, right? And so that usually you're calling, we're here to solve that problem. And so they are contacting us in distress. And when they're in distress like that, I'm so excited that I have a form of relief that can over time help to heal them. And time again, I've seen it happen. And that's the most fulfilling part of what I do is that my clients over the time, I see them being able to heal, being able to have peace and independence, and being able to get their work permit to go and work. And if they want to move on, they do move on. So that is definitely the pro. The other pro, even though it takes long, what offsets the length of time that it takes is the fact that you're able to get a work permit while you wait. Now, you do keep in mind that the work permit comes at the time that you're filing adjustment of status. And in most cases, we're filing adjustment of status along with our clients. So because of that, they're able to get the work permit. Right now, 5-year work permits, that can change, but it has always consistently been the case where work permits have been issued. Now, I want to get to questions, so I'm going to rush through the rest of the categories, and then it's up to you to follow up to figure out. We can talk to you to see, does it work for you? What are the pros and cons for you? But the other is T visa and U visa. If you've been the victim of trafficking, now trafficking comes in different forms. It's extremely broad in its definition. If you have been if no, no, there's a chance to pass the Dignity Act. I'll definitely get to your question, and that's a good question. No, the T visa. If you've ever been trapped in a situation where they maybe you were promised something from an individual, maybe you were forced to stay here, maybe they held on to your passport, and then you were put in a situation where you had to do things for them, you had to do work, you had to do work in the house, you had to do work for their business, then there you may qualify for what's called a T visa. T visa gives you the ability to get your work permit while you wait, and then provides you with a 4-year status, and then 3 years of having the status, you can apply for the green card. So it actually gives you the option to pursue your green card eventually. Now, the pro of this is marriage is not required at all. Um, it doesn't matter. No, facts matter, of course, but you to qualify for this, you could be married, you could be unmarried. If here's another pro, if you are married, your children and your spouse can get it along with you. I'll give you an example of a situation where our client was able to get relief here, and as a result of that, her spouse was able to get relief. Now, our client was here and came on a visitor's visa. Her aunt had promised that she was going to put her in school. She was going to take care of her, make her life much better than it was in than what it was in her country. And because of that, they sent, her family sent their teenage daughter thinking that their teenage daughter would experience a good life. Unfortunately, that's not how it went. The aunt basically, we also refer to this as a Cinderella situation. So I often say this, if you know the story of Cinderella and you are feeling like Cinderella, you need to give us a call. But this was a Cinderella situation where she was forced to babysit, take care of other people's kids, cook all the meals, clean. And yes, she was allowed to go to school, but she had to go to school, come back in, cook dinner, take care of the children, clean up the house again, and do it in rotation every single day like that. All right. She didn't have the freedom to leave as she wanted. The obviously her relative held on to her documents because the whole thing is she has custody of her. Eventually she was brave enough to say she can't do this anymore. She wanted to go to school and she left. right? When she left, she didn't have her papers. Can you imagine that, being so young and knowing the situation isn't right, escaping the situation, but having to really struggle through life? Our client, went forward with her life, got married, and her spouse was also in a situation where he didn't have his papers. The thing about it is that the spouse was not able to get his papers either. Well, we were able to step in years after it happened. I listened to what she went through, and I immediately knew this definitely was a T visa situation, where basically this is considered a form of trafficking, guys. So it's considered a form of trafficking, and so we were able to get the T visa. But here's the what was wonderful about the situation. Not only her spouse got it too. So they went from a situation of uncertainty and fear. Can you imagine? To the parent having kids and not knowing whether you're all going to stay together in the country where your kids are citizens. Well, they were able to get their papers and they're solid now. So this is just an example of a T visa situation. Now, in order to determine whether you qualify, just give us a call. Don't worry about what you have, what evidence you have. I just need to understand what you went through. It just needs to be true, and then we can go from there. All right, so that's a T visa situation. U visa, if you've ever been the victim of a crime, you've reported it, maybe even didn't report it, we need to look at it. Crime, and a certain crime. Were you assaulted? Were you involved in domestic violence, as in you were the victim of domestic violence? Were you in and it's very specific crimes, but we have to hear the facts of what you went through to determine whether you qualify for the U visa. U visa takes very long, but you do get the work permit while you wait. So you get protection while you go through your process. Now, the other is asylum. If you're here and you are free to go back to your country, if you've lost your status, say based on TPS, or you've lost your status based on parole, then, and going back to your country is not an option because of the level of threats that you face, we want to talk to you because there is an option to apply for your own papers based on this fair, but we have to understand there are very specific legal requirements. All right, so applying for asylum doesn't just mean that you fear going back to your country. It's definitely an important part of it, but there are other legal requirements, and you should not wait because you have up to 1 year from the date you enter to be able to apply for this. You can still apply after the 1 year deadline, but it would get a lot more challenging to get you approved if you applied after the 1 year deadline. All right, so those are the options. Now I'm going to spend time talking to you about going through the questions. So I'm going to start on TikTok, work my way around, put your questions in the comments. You'll see me looking one way. It's because I'm reading questions on one platform, but I'm definitely going to make my way over. So put those questions in the comments now so I can answer. Hello, Sherry. Put your question in the comments. How long does BFD and work permit take for U visa? My experience is prepare for a year and a half to 2 years. What's going on with receipt notices these days, though? Taking so long. You're absolutely right. They're backed up. It's taking up to 4 months to get receipt notices. Can someone who overstay their tourist visa apply for T? Absolutely. Now, the T visa, VAWA, U visa, asylum, even if you enter the country without permission, there may be some restrictions on asylum, but if you enter the country, you've overstayed, even entered the country without permission, you can qualify for this. Is there anything to speed up, like loss of money to survive? That could be a reason. Absolutely. No, you do have to show a loss. a significant financial loss. Most times, what we've done in cases where we've requested it based on that is we usually show a harm to an employer or a potential employer who needs the employee to work, but they can't work because they don't have the work permit. We've gotten a letter from the employer to say if the client doesn't get their ability to work, they're going to be harmed financially. That's one way. Um, is it safe to fly when pending you? I was a victim and have a pending application. If you have your work permit, yes. If you have your work permit bona fide determination letter, yes. At minimum, no, keep in mind you still have to meet ID requirements. And there's always a risk because there are individuals who have pending use that are still being detained. So you also have to be careful. But if you have a work permit, that's going to be ideal identification to travel with. Is it safe to fly domestic with a pending you? It depends. If you have you're at the point where you have your ID, then your work permit, then that should be enough. Can N 400 with pending 751 but conditional card lost. Yes, so you can file citizenship as long as you meet the requirements for citizenship while you have a pending 751. With your green card, you need to get an I-551 stamp if it's lost. And that can move you forward. Thank you for the compliment. Where in Jamaica are you from? So I grew up in Montego Bay, Mobay. Can N 400, let's see. Um, is there a chance to pass the Dignity Act? There is a chance. Keep in mind that the climate right now is pretty much it's very negative in regards to immigration, and the position of this government has not been focused on a legal pathway to immigrants who have contributed and worked hard to contribute. That really has not been their goal. However, with this is a type of bill that has bipartisan support. And I believe that the more we talk about the bill, the more we show the damage that these current policies are having on industries, on employers, on communities, even on the trust in law enforcement, then maybe we can have a turn. And with the bipartisan support, along with this discourse within the community about the negatives and how this act can lead to positives, can help us help our economy, can gain more revenue from the fact that immigrants do pay taxes. They're willing to pay even fines. They're willing to pay that to be able to gain legal permission to be here. So I do believe that eventually this can be passed. However, it's going to take time because of the discourse that's happening right now. It is facing an uphill battle, but with persistence. And then if the policies really start to harm, which I do believe over time we're going to start seeing harm to industries and the economy because of the way the policies are going, we may see some consideration now for, okay, the immigrants here who are contributing, who are law abiding, who don't have any criminal records, they do deserve a chance to continue to work and continue to contribute. So it's up to us guys to talk about it. Those of you who have the power to talk to your friends and talk to individuals about the Dignity Act, let's keep the discourse going because that's how we're going to start seeing a turn here. So it's possible. And will it pass tomorrow? Maybe not, but over time, I think it will. And they did introduce a version of this years ago. It didn't pass, but these policies are getting real, and the consequences are very harsh. So, are they going to start thinking of solutions? And the Dignity Act could be a solution. Can I use I-730 to add my family, my husband, if we got married just before my asylum got granted? So yeah, as long as you were married before it got granted, you can definitely get your spouse asylum. Um, okay. When will they start VAWA interviews? They've been doing VAWA interviews. So those now VAWA interviews, unfortunately, because of all the fraud, there have been people, non-attorneys, mainly who have submitted false. The way that they were doing it, where they were advertising to people, oh, you can get your work permit and here in the US and your green card. And people didn't understand. They would go to them and then they would tell them, oh, yeah, we're going to file your papers for you. And then don't worry about it. You're just going to get your work permit. Then they get their work permit and they're like, oh my gosh, this is great. But then it turns out they didn't qualify for VAWA. They didn't have an abusive spouse. In some cases, these people lied on the application, and some people didn't know this. So what they're doing is they're now interviewing people through the VAWA, some people. So they're not everybody's being interviewed, but they are calling VAWA interviews where they ask questions to ensure that this person, this applicant knows what's in their application, that it does not appear to be fraudulent. And right now, but this started last year, the VAWA interview. So it is going on. I am on removal. My ex-wife signed me an affidavit for the judge. So think it will work. Make sure you're talking to an attorney. Doesn't an affidavit from your ex-wife alone may not cut it. And when you're dealing with your before a judge, a lot of it is going to be procedural, meeting procedural, deadlines procedural, um, processes, being correct on those legal strategy, briefs. It is a lot more involved, and the judge will have to review those, review the briefing to ensure that you do meet the legal requirements. So, I don't know what your case is. I don't know what your defense is to deportation, but make sure you're talking to your attorney or you're getting an attorney. Um, I'm on removal. My ex-wife signed me an affidavit for the judge. Okay, so I answered that. Just want to know, if someone can fly to different states with a valid work permit, valid and current work permit, yes. It can be used in place of a real ID. Make sure you're checking with your airline. All right, so I'm on YouTube, Facebook. So go ahead, put your questions in the comments. Do you think therapy for VAWA after submitted my VAWA application? Yes. Um, so yeah, therapy is, you need therapy. That definitely is an indication of the effect that it had on you. And the therapist can definitely draft an evaluation that tells you how tells the officer how it affected them. So absolutely. Okay, what if you have an underage kid that's a US citizen? Unfortunately, a child cannot apply if they're under 21 for their parent. So that would not be an option. But as I said before, this is where it's so important to contact us. Now, even if you get a notice to appear, you have an option to still move forward with defenses. Getting a notice to appear to immigration court is not the end of it. And if you put up a good defense, you can very well walk out of there with your green card instead of being deported. So if even if you get a notice to appear, guys, for evaluate your options. The best situation is to get your options evaluated before you ever have to face a situation like that. Because if it is, then guess what? You don't have to face the stress of defending yourself in immigration court. But immigration court carries a level of complexity that not a lot of immigrants are prepared for to do on their own. And that is where they are in a losing situation because there is a manual that the court uses that you have to abide by the court's procedural rules in order to have the judge consider. So very not abiding by that could very well prevent the judge from considering your defense. Are there any delays with the receipts after submitting VAWA? Yes, yes, there is a delay. We're noticing 4 months now, an average of 4 months on receipt notices. Hopefully that does not become a regular thing. Hopefully, as they iron out their processes on the back end, we will see less of that. But we are seeing that backlogs are getting worse, and that's because they're on the back end revamping systems, revamping the way they look at applications, and they're slowing down because of that. So all right, let me see any. Okay, how does getting an HHS letter for T visa help your case? What does it prove or show? The HH letter is there to help you with benefits. Keep in mind, this is not used against people with a T visa. T visa are specifically exempt from fees, from public charge rules, meaning taking public benefits will get you denied. That does not get T visa applicants denied. And the reason being, T visa applicants are usually in a very vulnerable situation where you have limited funds, you may have health issues, you may need medical care. And because of that, once you do get a bona fide determination letter or you get approved for the T visa, you then get and you can have it. Well, HHS contacts us and let us know that we need to either submit a request for a letter on behalf of our client or to tell our client to contact HHS to get this letter. And this letter allows the client to get Medicaid, to get certain benefits, public benefits. So it is essential. And I would say, guys, once you're in a situation where you can get this letter, get it, because it will help you to stabilize your life, get a head start, and just be able to get basic necessities for yourself. Um, I have no, here's another thing though. If while your process is pending, you get an HHA and here's another way that it can help to empower you in your T visa process. If you get, for example, a bona fide determination, and then you go and get an HHS letter, and you are able, say you're facing health issues, but you've never been to the doctor because you just don't have the money or the resources or the time because you were never given the opportunity to seek medical care. So this gives you the ability to get medical care. And then when in the medical care, we're able to then compile additional documentation showing health issues that can strengthen your case, right? Can also use it to get therapy. Therapy strengthens your case as well. So this is why, taking steps to get help is essential here. I have a friend married to a US citizen and has a deportation order from a parent old filing, but had TPS the past years and pending TPS now and having an upcoming I-130 interview. Should he be worried? Here's the deal. You need to if you have an attorney, make sure you are prepping well for this case. Now, TPS I don't know which TPS you have, but the courts have made a move to keep TPS in place until it officially expires, right? Now, TPS does still offer protection from deportation. um, the deportation order, so the TPS also prevents that person from being deported. The deportation order does present a risk, but you have to be prepared, and not attending that interview puts you in a in meaning it means you can't move forward with your green card, and you can't move forward to get your case reopened, right? That I-130 interview is going to be essential as well. Now, I'm not your attorney, and I'm just basing it off of very general facts. So you need to talk to your attorney on strategy, just because you can't take anything I'm saying and go take action because I'm not giving legal advice. But you do have a complex situation that you need to make sure you plan and prepare for. Um, so yeah, make sure you that I-130, but that I-130 interview is essential. You don't get to that interview, then the rest of your defenses in court may go down the drain. Is VAWA still right? So I think, is VAWA still going? VAWA is still going. T visa filed March 2024. What can I hear? When can I hear something? Already did biometrics, October 2024. So the next step is going to be bona fide determination. They're going to issue whether they're going to give you a bona fide determination, and then the work permit. Now, the bona fide determination, it usually takes, my experience is about 3 months. Uh, but keep in mind it's discretionary, and we have seen a slight delay since this new administration has come in. Then after that, I would say about 6 months after the bona fide determination is when we're seeing the work permits being issued. So it is taking time, but the T visa process is taking longer as well. How long does a U visa take based on I-45? A U visa based I-45 take on average, you can expect about 2 years. If the kid needs special education, what if the kid needs special education? So give us a call, because there are situations where if the child is sick or they have a disability and they can't be treated in another country and they're a US citizen, we have gotten um, what's called deferred action. Deferred action just means they're not going to take action to deport that person because they are needed to be with their child to get that care. Usually, though, it's in situations where the medical care is essential, sometimes even life and death situations. But still, give us a call. Let's not only evaluate that, but let's evaluate other circumstances in your life to determine whether you do qualify for a form of relief that we work with. Give us a call. We are 24 hours a day, guys, and we are able to, so many of our clients who are now okay started out calling us saying, you know what, let me give this a shot. Listen to my life just like you're listening to it now, and said, you know what, let me give it a shot. So I just did an interview with my client, by the way, for my podcast, and we talked about that. That client inspired me so much, and she's living a life where she is now defining her own success. But how it started, she started watching me, and she was very fearful to call, but eventually she overcame that fear. She called, and we talked about her options. She didn't know what she could qualify for. She just knew she needed help, and she found a safe space here at ST Law Office. She's okay. Her children are okay. That is the kind of impact we're having, and that we want to continue to have. And as policies change, we are just adopting to make sure that we can still help our clients through. Um, Would have taken SNAP benefits affect your VAWA application? It should not. VAWA applicants are also exempt from the public charge. So they don't even look at that. They don't look at your income, by the way. So with marriage-based, family-based cases, you do have to show that your relative makes enough money for you to be here. They have to show that they support you. Well, with these, they do not require an affidavit of support. So they're not going to look at income. They're not going to look at um, you know, your public benefits. No. Keep in mind, if it was obtained through fraud, that's a different story, right? But if you qualify, then they don't hold it against you. Okay, you start VAWA and I-485 since last year, but your marriage-based I-485 got denied this year. And it may be denied. I don't know. I'm not your attorney, but I'm just making assumptions here. It sounded like you filed a new I-485. The I-485 was based on the marriage. Now, usually in a case like that, if you're married to a US citizen, you have a pending I-485, we don't file a new I-485. We switch the I-485 to your VAWA. That would have kept everything going, right? But in this case, they deny the I-485 because now you have a VAWA and a new I-485. That I-485 is based on a marriage base that is no longer going forward. So that may be the situation, but I'm not your attorney, so I wouldn't be able to tell. Definitely talk to your attorney about it. If they're denying, one thing you need to be wary of is if they're denying the marriage base because your marriage isn't bona fide, they don't believe it's bona fide, then you may have a problem with the VAWA because the VAWA also requires that you show that your marriage is bona fide. So I would definitely, if you don't have an attorney, get one because those are the kind of issues that we need to evaluate. Can an individual can an individual hearing turn back in a master hearing? No. Unless something changes procedurally, no, it's usually forward. So once they schedule that individual hearing, you have to make sure it's like a trial. You have to make sure you are ready for it. Uh, Hello, can you please tell me how long it takes to get approval for family-based? Mom applied for 17-year-old boy. I'd say a year and a half, as long as mom is a US citizen. I don't know no, I would say this. Year and a half if they're in the United States. Year and a half. If they are outside of the United States, then you're looking at if they're outside of the United States, I would say 2 to 3 years. Okay, they changed the judge. Oh, okay, okay. So it's possible. Now, changing the judge does not mean because I've been before the court and we did the master before one judge, and they can always change the judge for the individual hearing. That's normal. Um, if they change venue, that might be another issue. But you definitely need to make sure you talk to your attorney. You should definitely have an attorney in this. Call us. Now, if you want a consultation, call us. We have attorney Deanna. We have attorney Bria here who work very closely with me to understand whether you qualify and move forward with the process ASAP. Let's see. Once asylum is granted, will there be an interview for the green card? Yes, yes, yeah. Now there are certain circumstances. What they have said is now they have a process in place where they're going to look for certain red flags, and based on those red flags, they're going to schedule interviews. But you just have to be ready because they are flagging those now. They're screening those for fraud again. Once asylum is granted, will there be an interview? Would have taken SNAP benefits affect your VAWA application? It should not. They shouldn't be holding that against you or denying you based on that. Um, I'll scroll to the top and let me see questions. I'm on Instagram, so put your questions in the comments. Hi there, Applejack. Nice to see you. Kabir, nice to see you. Hi there, Onik. Oniki, it's nice to see you. Mm. Hi there, Gifto Chulo. I have a question. Do they always do interview for the tenure or they can approve you without it? It's more likely you're gonna get an interview now. I did my biometrics May, interview August, got approved. Now I get a notice for a second biometrics. Sometimes it may be an issue with the biometrics that they got. So I've seen that before and never had an issue with it, just went back a second time. If there's something you're concerned about though, because keep in mind this is general information. If there is something you're concerned about, that's where you definitely need to get in touch or call on your immigration attorney and talk to them and clarify. I got married with my husband 17 years, tried to fix them a green card, fighting so hard for it, and they denied his visa. So now he has a deportation. I did a petition, I haven't gotten any response. I'm so sorry. Um, now, if I don't know if he's gotten a deportation order, but this is very complex. If he's going through removal now, then you may be able to still pursue adjustment of status in court. So the strategy is going to depend though on um, yeah, it's gonna depend. Can you request an expedited processing for a T visa together with an application when filing it? Or yes, you can request an expedite at the time of filing as well. Requesting an expedite usually is a matter of attaching a letter. First you have to make it big and bold, expedite request, but you can also submit. So what we do is we contact the T visa unit directly. And in cases where we need expedite to request that from them. Attorneys are given a specific contact information to do that. My niece is holding J1 visa and her visa sponsor called her that her visa was canceled and they need to leave the USA in 2 days. If won't leave in 2 days, the ICE is going to knock on their door to deport them. So they're placed right away and travel 3 days by car, going to different places and ask for help since she is pregnant and cannot afford to pay for their ticket. So this is give us a call. A situation like this sounds very fishy. Give us a call ASAP. This is exactly what we help with. And the fact that there no something is going on and it sounds like the employer did something wrong, right? And now they're trying to cover it up. So give us a call. Let's talk. It's urgent because she may qualify for relief through the T visa, especially seeing now she's pregnant and is going through a hard time. Give us a call. ASAP. Call us right now. I'm a US citizen. I have a question. I recently got married. My wife lives in Panama but has a Belize passport. She doesn't have a Panama passport. Can she still get her American visa in Panama? If she can show that she's residing in Panama, she's a resident in Panama, yes, they know they do have their processes at the embassy to show that. But yeah, that's how she would still get an appointment in Panama. Usually you have to show that. Um, so yeah, make sure this is in regards to your niece. Give us a call. This sounds like a fishy situation. where TVs are maybe an option. Can you request an expedited to answer that? Um, I have a pending asylum case. My daughter is 20. What age do children age out of asylum and what are the possible options? So 21. I would have to look to see if there's any CSPA, so child CPSA, so Child Protective Status Act. That does protect children from aging out, but I'd have to look at what the specifics are on that one. But 21 is when they age out. What can happen at a master hearing? So at a master hearing, it's very short, 5 minutes. Most of it is spent waiting. If it's virtual, literally 5 minutes, maybe 15 minutes if you have some additional issues to go through. But it's basically answering the charges on the notice to appear. When you get the notice to appear, it's going to have line numbered sentences just detailing why they're deporting, why they've issued a notice to appear, and then each one, the immigrant in this case has to admit or deny, and then then state the defenses to deportation. That's where you would then state, I need to apply for asylum. I am applying for withholding of removal or CAT as alternatives. I am applying for cancellation of removal. I'm applying for VAWA. VAWA is still an option under, and VAWA is even it's a little more liberal under the court. So there is no deadline to file for VAWA. So if you're, say, you're the son or daughter of a U.S. citizen and they mistreated you, then you could still go for VAWA. So VAWA is also an option. Cancellation of removal if you've been here for a long time, so 10 years continuously, and you have good moral character, and you have a U.S. citizen or U.S. citizen or resident relatives here, like parents. So usually immediate relatives, you can qualify. So as I said before, there are defenses, but you have to explore those and be ready to state those at the master calendar hearing. This can also be very useful at a bond hearing as well. Can I go to USCIS interview with an expired passport? Now, keep in mind, it's better than having nothing. If you don't have another government issued ID and you have that expired passport, you can try. I do know during the last Trump administration that it started to become an issue, but I didn't hear them change the policies that you could enter with an expired passport. And we've had clients that have gone through and taken their expired passport and it's been fine. But as I said before, I'm not your attorney. I can't give you specific advice. You really have to go off of what can work for you. You can't miss that interview, that's for sure. So it's best you show up with what you have and then go from there. I'm waiting for swearing in letter for citizenship. How long does it take? So I've seen it take about 2 weeks to 4 weeks. Usually you get it on the spot. If they had to wait before they approved you, then you could be looking at 2 to 4 weeks. Um, what are my options to get a work permit? Right now, I'm on an F1 visa doing my second master's. So it's limited for F1. Usually you're looking at OPT, which is post work program where you get your work permit. But it is limited for F1 students. All right, that's gonna be it from me today. Thank you everybody for your time. As usual, look out for me. I'm aiming to be here Mondays through Fridays. and I come at different times. Today was a little early, but I come at different times. So this is where I say like, subscribe, follow, share, hit the notification bell, because that is how you're able to see me, get notification when I go live, so you can join me. And then also, guys, when we share, we engage the post, the post and the live. So thank you for all your engagement here. It also helps other people to see information that can empower them through their immigration journey. So thank you for sitting down with me, taking the time. Look out for me again tomorrow, and we'll save your question. If I didn't get to it, I'd love to answer it, but I definitely have to go. So save your question, ask tomorrow. As soon as I come on, put your question in the comments, and I will get to it after I do a brief intro. All right. Have a good one, guys. And remember, call. That is how you're going to empower yourself first. Call us, talk to us about your specific situation so we can find an option. We can look to see if there are options available for you to get protection here. All right. Have a good one. Bye bye.